everyone, welcome to Credential Up Houston. My name is Margaret Fisher. Mental health issues are spiking among college students and also among others in the country. The American College Health Association, for example, indicates that about 60% of the student respondents to a survey felt overwhelming anxiety, while 40% experienced depression so severe they had difficulty functioning. Penn State University noted that mental health services spiked by 30 to 40% among their students during a period that saw only a 5% increase in enrollment. And in August 2019, Reuters reported that severe depression rates among US college students doubled from 2007 to 2018. Well, now we have COVID-19. So for this program, we want to spend some time addressing mental wellness. I am absolutely honored to welcome our special guest, Dr. William F Pettitt Jr. to the program. Dr. Pettit is a board-certified psychiatrist in Phoenix, Arizona. He has subspecialties in many additional areas of psychiatrist. He was in private practice for many years and currently is an internationally renowned speaker, professor, author, and advocate for mental wellness. Dr. Pettit, thank you so very, very much for joining us.
Dr. Fisher, it is truly an honor.
Thank you so very, very much. And for all of your work that you have done over the years in psychiatry, I'm just, very, very impressed. So first, let's talk about mental health and what that really means. What are the measures and conditions of mental health as you see it?
I've come to see it with simplicity, Margaret, that mental health and mental well-being is the state of happiness and contentment inside, a state of that's accompanied by love and understanding. It's a state of peace. And I know a lot of people feel, especially during this time, that that's not possible in difficult circumstances. And in fact, that's when it's really needed. Because that's where wisdom lies, in that feeling of, that's where wisdom, we have ready access to. I'm going to talk spiritual without talking religion. That's where divine wisdom lies, within
in the peace.
And we access it easily, and we in a state of peace, in a state where our personal mind is quieted down and has made space for the, if you will, the divine mind to come through us. And that's why people do mindfulness. That's why they do yoga. That's why they do meditation, to try to quiet their personal mind a little bit, to let the wisdom come through.
So is mental health then the same as a state of happiness?
It is to me. It's a state of happiness and contentment. And whoever marketed happiness and contentment hasn't done as well as the people who marketed worry.
That's interesting.
If I ever invent something, and at my age, at 78, it may be unlikely, but I will find out who marketed worry and have them market my product, because they've marketed a very destructive habit as a badge of courage. Whereas contentment, when people think of that, they think of people sitting, not doing anything, not seeing injustice, not doing what they can do to make things right. And that's far from true, because when people are contented, they have all their faculties available to them that God gave them to see clearly and to do what needs to be done.
In this state of uncertainty, where many individuals have lost their jobs,
right,
or they've lost their businesses, or it's in this state of uncertainty for them, whether or not their businesses will ever get back to full capacity. People are having all kinds of family-related issues, health issues, etc. How do they find that state of happiness and peace that you're referencing to ensure that they have the mental wellness?
Well, it's hard to do in 3 9-minute sessions, but there's a direction to know that we already have everything we need inside. And we have to see that there's a reality beyond this world, or it's a paradox. Seeing that we are spiritual beings connected to infinite wisdom is what allows us to live in this world with effectiveness and regardless of circumstances in the most difficult times. I think of Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl survived 3.5 years in the death camp. Pregnant wife killed, father and mother killed, brother killed. And he came out of that and he was supposed to be traumatized. He lived for 92 years and wrote 16 books. There's something that he knew something. And what he said was, there is a space between the stimulus and the response, and that's where our freedom lies. And I would say that's where wisdom lies. That
is interesting. And of course, I read Viktor Frankl's book, and it was really very, very instructive, because he saw all of what was going on. Right. He was living in that state as well, where he could have very well have been victimized, right, or killed, but he was able to rise above that. So you're saying that people need to get to that state in their minds. Give us an example of how a person would do that.
My mentor, a man named Sidney Banks, said, when the answer is simple, it's the spirit. When the answer is complicated, it's the intellect. And the simple answer is to, as best as one can, to get into the present moment. Einstein knew about the divine thought system. He said it this way: I think 99 times and I get nothing. I stop thinking, meaning I stop paying attention to my computer brain. I swim in silence, and the truth comes to me.
Beautiful.
And I can tell you, I've had people who've had guns to their head, and people were counting before. I've had people in, you name whatever experiences you want. If you do something over 50 years, you hear just about everything. And I know this is available to us, everyone, not just some special people, not just a Mandela, not just a Martin Luther King, not just a Frankl, to everyone, if they have the courage to look in a different direction than trying to figure it out.
Well, that's very interesting. In one of the articles I was reading, it indicated that mental illness is said to occur from the interaction of multiple genes and other factors. And those can influence or trigger an illness in a person who has the inherited susceptibility to it. So my question is whether some individuals are more susceptible to mental illness or challenges than others. So what I'd like to do, Dr. Pettitt, is for us to take a break.
Good.
When we return, we're going to discuss the mind, brain, body, and behavior connection. So we're looking forward to that conversation, so please stay with us. Welcome back to Credential Up Houston and our discussion with Dr. William F Pettitt, MD, psychiatrist. In the previous section of this program, in this segment, we were talking about the susceptibility of certain individuals to mental challenges or mental illness if they have that specific gene. And I wanted to find out from you before we go into the discussion of the mind-body connection to the behavior. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Pettit?
Well, I would refer people to have any interest to a book written by Dr. Robert Sapolsky from Stanford, internationally known researcher in stress and resilience and just about everything. The title of the book is called Behave, and it's 670 pages. And at the end, he says it's complicated because he doesn't understand something that I'd love to, that we are people are creating their experience moment to moment from the inside out via 3 spiritual gifts that I'm going to call universal mind, thought, and consciousness. And we're making a movie. That's why there are no 2 people in the world, Margaret, who are living in the same experience. Once I realized that, my marriage, my late wife and I became much gentler because it stopped arguing over who was right. Everybody is experiencing the world differently, and we're creating it from the inside out. And what he shows from 670 pages of research is that no hormone causes any experience. No gene causes any experience. For instance, I'll just take those 2. Testosterone has the, reputation of making people aggressive. He says, no, research shows that's not true. If you are aggressive and you have high testosterone or you will become more aggressive. If you are in a good state of mind and your system needs more testosterone at a certain moment, it will create it and you will use it constructively. Okay, same thing with gene. There's a thing called the warrior gene. And there's a man in California that actually got off a lower sentence from his murder of somebody because he had the warrior gene. And Dr. Sapolsky shows the warrior gene does not make you more violent. If you are violent, it will make you more violent if you have that gene. So it doesn't cause people's behavior or experience.
So when you make reference to the inside out, it goes back to that state of happiness, that wisdom that you made reference to earlier. Is that correct?
It does, Dr. Fisher. And, I didn't mean to avoid your question. It's just hard in the limited time that we have that we think these things are real. Dr. Tom Insel, who was the National Institute of Mental Health director for 12 years till 2017, said, we are so embedded in this structure, we have spent so much time diagnosing mental disorders that we actually believe they are real. There's no reality. They're just constructs. There's no reality to schizophrenia or depression. We might have to stop using terms like depression and schizophrenia because they are getting in our way and confusing things.
So you're right. Wow. So then how do we determine who's normal as we look at them and interact with them? How do individuals determine their level of normalcy, as it were, in relationship to other people?
See, normal is not necessarily healthy. Normal is the bell curve. If 75% of the people are 75 to 80% stressed every day, that's normal. It is not healthy. It has tremendous implications for people's psychological, physiological, and spiritual well-being. You don't want to be normal. It's overrated.
Amazing. And we use that term quite often.
We do.
When we see individuals who behave somewhat differently, and we call the individuals perhaps, well, that's strange, or we don't understand that. Maybe the person who's evaluating the others, those who are not trained, as it were.
Well, I think we can observe healthy behavior and unhealthy behavior.
Certainly.
Healthy behavior is usually in service of others and not just self. It's for the better good, and it starts with taking care of yourself. Because
Right.
It's hard to give from an empty basket. if you don't know how to keep peace of mind for yourself and have that available, in a way, the most selfless thing you can do is to become selfish about finding peace of mind.
Great.
Because then you're giving from fullness.
In reading your bio, it indicated that your life changed when you met Sydney Banks in 1983 and came to embrace the 3 universal principles that you made reference to earlier. Tell us about Mr. Banks and his mentorship of you for over 20 years and the 3 principles, please.
Again, it's hard to chew in limited time, and I will give people a www.sidbanks.com, and where he actually talks and describes his experience in 1973. He died in 2009. He was a simple, uneducated man, 9th grade education, limited education, I shouldn't say uneducated, limited education, who had what most people call an epiphany. And in that, he talked about, I saw what people call God was, I saw what life was, and I saw how the two are connected, and I cried. Because he saw what he called God was pure love and understanding, and that was our natural birthright, except when we were innocently misusing the gift of thought to take us away from home. This is radical, Dr. Fisher, and I know that, and we've got an article that's 4 weeks now in waiting to be published, and we worked 20 months on it, and I'm excited because I think it could be a tipping point. But it's a whole new way of seeing the things that we call psychiatric symptoms. I'm going to say are love letters from God. Now, people say, what are you talking about? We've got 1 minute, I see. So I'm going to mention, and like to in the next part to talk about it, but we have 4 areas that if I start misusing this power and gift of thought, my mood goes down, my anxiety goes up, my thinking gets muddled, and my body starts feeling uncomfortable or painful. And those are gifts, like it is if the pain that I feel when I put my hand on a hot burner, they are gifts.
Oh my, that is powerful. Yes, I would like for us to continue that discussion, and I'd like to also ask you to apply that to the reference that was made in the opening of the program as it pertains to our students who are feeling that stress, and to the general public, those who are also feeling that stress. So we will take a break, and when we return, we're going to continue our discussion about the 3 principles and the behavior. So please stay with us.
Food. We think about it all the time, but for many Americans, it's a scary thought. During this crisis, 1 in 12 seniors and 1 in 7 children don't have access to nutritious food. We can all help. Get involved at feedingamerica.org.
A natural disaster may force you to evacuate, and the coronavirus could impact your emergency plans. So take steps now to help your family and community prepare. Keep a supply kit stocked with cloth face coverings, disinfecting supplies, and hand sanitizers. Check with local officials about what shelter spaces will be open during quarantine efforts. And remember to review the CDC's guidelines with the whole family. Disasters won't wait. Neither should you. Visit ready.gov/plan to make a plan today.
There's no better place to knock out the basics than HCC. Whether you learn online, on campus, or both, HCC is the safe, flexible, affordable option. Register now at hccs.edu/college your way.
Welcome back to Credential Up Houston. We're continuing our discussion with Dr. William F Pettitt, psychiatrist, author, international speaker, mentor. And Dr. Pettitt, is so exciting talking to you because we were talking about the 3 principles. And we'd like to find out from you how individuals who are experiencing all of the stressors can once again apply this to their lives. And you were referencing how it's in the mind, and how the mind and what you're thinking in your conscious self would influence behavior. So tell us about that, please.
You know, it's interesting what just came to me, Dr. Fisher. And I'll blame it on my 78 years, but I'm blocking on her first name, so I need your help. Tubman.
Oh, Harriet.
Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman knew the divine thought system was available to her. I watched that movie and I sense it probably portrayed it pretty healthily, that if people think that they're undergoing stressful situations today, I would ask them to put themselves in Harriet Tubman's place. And yet she knew to allow her mind to quiet and listen. And she would say that she actually heard God's voice. Some people, it's not as clear. Some people, when they have the courage to start allowing their mind to quiet, when they don't get the answer with their figuring it out, if they really know they're connected to where they came from a formless energy, then to the degree they know that, they will naturally allow their mind to quiet and listen. To the degree they don't know that, and you can't force anybody to know it. I'm saying that we all know it, we just have to remember it. We used to call this flathead therapy because people go, oh,
Yes.
I did this.
Yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes, I agree. But you know what you're saying, I really value that. And, you know, as we see people out jogging now and walking to maintain their physical health in the face of COVID and all of the uncertainties, give some of the steps now. And you made reference to those. Let's talk about how we start that process, perhaps on a daily basis, to start quieting the mind, even in the midst of all of the things that are going on, and practicing the mental health that you were referencing. What are the steps?
Yeah, that's what's tricky, because our intellect wants steps.
Yes.
It does, Dr. Fisher, it wants steps.
Yes.
And it's not, it's an insight. See, there's two sources of knowledge. One is accumulating knowledge with our intellect, our computer. It's a laptop. We can take it wherever we go. It's our brain. But there's another source of knowledge, what I'll call through realization, where people have insights. And everybody's had those. And when they've had them, most parents have had that, where they have a difficult situation with children, and suddenly the days that later they see they were a little quieter in their head and they were in a positive feeling state, because wisdom always comes in a positive feeling. It travels in a positive feeling. And they suddenly see what to do, and they say and do it, and their child comes back to sanity and health and quiets down. And I have had parent after parent that said, wow, they wondered where that came from and how do I access that on a more regular basis. And I'm suggesting that is available. And the sooner that you start noticing that your mood is going down, or your anxiety level is going up, or your thinking is getting muddled, or you're feeling discomfort physically, that's the time to turn away from the intellect.
Wonderful. Turn away from the intellect.
Well, to turn away, like Einstein said, just to know that it's not, people say, don't you have worrisome thoughts? I said, I do. They say, what do you do with them? I said, I thank my brain for sharing its comments. And I asked one question, is there something that I see to do? And if I don't, then it's about getting quiet. It's about getting present in my life. See, you can't be present in your life and be in your thoughts at the same time. You'll be thinking. If you watch children playing, they're thinking, but they're not in their thoughts. They're in their life.
Yes.
And that's where the answers are. People think that's frivolous. It's not. It's where the answers are.
Wow. So in reading one of the articles and watching one of the videos also, when Mr. Banks was in a session, and we talked about this previously, And this lady was talking about how she was feeling. And he said, look, your brain is like a computer. And he said, all of that you put in there, and if you're feeling angry, then it's like a disc. You take a disc and you put it in and you say, okay, well, I want to feel angrier today. And so you feel that way. You take that disc out and you say, okay, now I want to be happy. And so he asked the lady, if you put all of those negative discs in, does that make you feel better? And she said, no. So then he said, well, change the disc. So tell us about that, changing that disc. Can you always make that shift from the negative mood or the negative experience that you're having to put in the disc and say, okay, I'm going to overlook this and I'm going to get into that quiet place?
Dr. Fisher, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. What I do know how to do is when I'm in that state of mind is to quit feeding it. And like a cork, to me, my mental well-being and everybody's mental well-being is like a cork. I can push it down by giving life to negative thoughts. But once I stop paying attention to them and just get in the present as best as I can, the cork comes back to the surface. You don't have to do anything but let go to get the cork back to the surface.
Marvelous.
And if I can, I know we're limited on time. Can I just tell a real quick one?
Sure.
Lady that came in on a Friday, 48 years old, overwhelmed with depression and anxiety, not where she was suicidal, but not caring for herself. She wasn't eating, she wasn't bathing, she had D's and F's in special ed, right? So I couldn't have her read. I had her watch Mr. Banks's Long Beach lectures twice. On Monday, she looked 5 to 8 years younger. She told me I wouldn't have to see her anymore, which I never saw her again. And she said, you know, what I need to tell you is while I was watching it, something touched me that I haven't been in touch with since I was a small child. And then she almost embarrassed. She said, like she was reluctant to tell me. She said, can I tell you something, Dr. Pettit? I said, sure, Betty. She said, I did not understand one word that man said because he was not talking to her intellect.
Wow.
He was talking to her soul.
Yes.
And she heard it.
Yes.
And I could tell stories till tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Well, we'd like to hear some of those also. But this has been wonderful. And I'd like for you in maybe 10 to 15 seconds to tell us any recommendation or top of mind item that we didn't discuss that you'd like to leave the audience with today.
Well, I just think Mr. Banks is, if people wanted to learn physics, they would go to the 1905 papers of Einstein. I think Mr. Banks' 6 little books are treasures. They're treasures. And the videos at www.sidbanks.com, they're treasures. And I think God, whatever God is, I think God allowed him to see something that most people have not seen.
Well, this is magnificent. And you are a treasure also, a living treasure. And we appreciate you, Dr. Pettit. Thank you so very much for joining us and for sharing your expertise and tremendous insights. We look forward to further conversations with you.
I would enjoy that.
And so would we. And I also thank our viewers for watching. If you are an HCC student and are experiencing mental health challenges, please contact the Counseling and Disability Services Office at 713-718-7449 or access all services online at hccs.edu/counseling. HCC counselors, like the rest of us, are all here to assist you. Meanwhile, please stay healthy and strong. And remember to credential up Houston. And we'll see you again next time.